Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living
with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios, Universal Broadcasting Radio Network TV and radio. And then now every Thursday and Saturday on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5. And now all over the states, over 100 countries on iHeartRadio. And this is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no CNN, no constantly negative news, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality life and your own reality show. At your own reality show with music and how you can be happy 88% of the time. 8 because it's a lucky number in Chinese. It's a homonym for good fortune. And the 12% is just contrast. Can't be happy all the time. So if you've missed any of my past shows with fabulous guests like Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Marianne Williamson, I'm having Lisa Nichols on next month, Marianne from Gilligan's Island, Dr. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Dr. Pat Allen, you name it, the list goes on. Please do visit my YouTube. My views are now over 64,000. Thank you so, so much for continuing to support my hope and happiness. Or go on iTunes or Stitcher, or there's so many places to get me. I am so grateful to you for continuing to support hope and happiness here. And before I get to my fabulous guests, I do have some shout outs today because I did just return. I flew in yesterday from Toronto and New York. My arms are a little tired. Actually, I was so blessed to meet and have fun with a lot of my family. And Jarvis is now flicking through a bunch of pictures from my trip. So I wanted to give a huge peace shout out to Toronto International Airport, the lost and found area in particular. Yes, I did temporarily misplace my iPad. And thank you to Vitario and Genial and Nav, and I know I totally got those names wrong, but my voice recognition changed some of the letters. The baggage handlers Cahill, Wilmont, and Ivan, because I also almost missed my flight and had to have their assistance. So you can tell for as much traveling I do, I had a very interesting trip. And all my favorite relatives in Toronto, Waterloo, starting with my brother's surprise party and ending with being the wedding singer at my nephew and new niece's wedding, where I got to serenade them. Congratulations and only love to Stephen and Vera. Last but not least, taking my daughter to her new home at Cornell. A shout out to the Wyndham Hotels, Ethel and Tony for great customer service, and John Hart and Karen from Cornell University Business Services. I hope you enjoy the little mini slideshow. Thank you, Jarvis, for flipping through them. He's like, I'm going to kill you. But enough of that. I wanted to absolutely do a little introduction here of my guest today. I love the timing, and everything happens for a reason. I almost had Ramona on in July, and things didn't work out, and I was doing some traveling. And between then and now, in September, I've actually had a lot of thoughts about homelessness and solutions for homelessness. And a lot of you know I sit on the board of directors at the Hillview Mental Health Hospital, and I've been, my background originally before I discovered that I have no patience, literally and figuratively, that I thought I was going to be a clinical psychologist. So the area of homelessness and what's going on and with a lot of the mentally ill on the streets since Camarillo got closed and all of that, that I wanted to talk about it. And sure enough, Ramona Bridges has just released a new book, and it's called Forgive Me My Trespasses, and she asked to be on the show. And so I can't think of a better, perfect subject matter expert than to have her on. So Ramona Bridges is here with her friend and also her editor, and I'm going to let you say your name on your own, but please welcome to my studio Tashia Asanti and Ramona Bridges. And this is Ramona's first time. And I want you to take a breath because you look nervous. I was talking to her in the pre-interview, and I told her, you're just going to be talking to me. So just pretend we're still in the car and we're not in a studio, because you have the most amazing amazing story. You went from eating at 5-star hotels to being charged with trespassing, sleeping in the lobby of 5-star hotels, and you have truly lived that experience. So I want you to tell me first of all, welcome to the studio. We already did our clapping, and tell me why this book.
Well, first of all, Dr. Marissa, I'd like to thank you for having Tashia and I here.
Absolutely.
And allowing us to have this type of platform. I was inspired actually by one of my friends that actually tried to bail me out at one time to write the book, because she felt I had a story to share. And I sat with it a long time before I actually enlisted Tashia's help to put it to paper.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so you have been diagnosed.
That's correct.
Okay, and your diagnosis was?
Bipolar.
So you're on medication
That's
now.
Correct.
But when you were off medication is when things were not going very well.
That's correct.
So take me back.
Okay. I had been off work with a workers' compensation claim and was on state disability at the time. And I was so busy trying to take care of other people, I didn't take care of myself. Mm-hmm. So that led to me losing my apartment and me losing my car, and not being in common sense mode. I could have, been sleeping in the car, but I didn't, so I ended up losing both things. So I was literally on the street.
You were homeless.
That's correct.
And you were homeless. You were not on your meds, and so you were feeling out of sorts or out of yourself.
Right.
And then you were arrested.
Right.
For sleeping in places that you weren't supposed to sleep. Okay.
Correct.
And then what happened?
Well, my spiritual family came to my assistance. I spent the night one night with my family, and they were trying to find me housing, and I kept resisting the notion of going into housing. It's difficult to put into words sometimes when you're homeless, you not wanting to be in a place where you have a curfew and you have rules to follow and things of that particular nature, because there's so much that you learn just from being outside.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I think, the mayor recently got quite a lot of money to try to remedy the homeless situation. And this is when I started getting these inspiring thoughts to, instead of throwing money at the problem right away and providing housing or providing this or providing that, that we take a step back and actually look at the systemic nature of the problem. And let me explain that. I'm a scientist, so we're Newtonian thinkers in America, especially. If there's a problem, like if we say, what's wrong with welfare, someone will say, well, it's because it doesn't allow people the dignity of wanting to work anymore. They'd rather take a free hand, and that's the solution, so we should stop giving it, and that's the end of it. That's a very rudimentary, ignorant solution, because it only provides one arm of a very complex problem. And I think homelessness is one of those very multiple push points, multiple problem points, multiple opportunities to remedy. So my first question to you, as someone who has lived on the streets, as a homeless person, you can't generalize that all homeless people are alike, right?
That's correct.
So what would you say? Here's my guess, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I believe that there are some homeless who are mentally ill, and they don't have access to the system, don't understand it, or are not of the mind to actually receive the benefits that they are entitled to, being mentally ill. Okay, so there's that group. And then there's another group who I hear about all the time. And of course, Donald Trump will say that all homeless people are lazy, who don't want to work, and therefore just lay around collecting and don't want to help themselves, which I believe there might be one or two that are in that camp, all right, who would prefer just to collect free give outs than to actually work for their money. But I would not say that they were the large part of the population. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, what I hear you saying, and what you're talking about here is actually a couple of things. First of all, homelessness has so many common threads with other issues, whether it be affordable housing or urban cleansing, which can lead to homelessness. All those issues are all bundled up in the homelessness issue, so it's difficult to tackle homelessness all by itself.
Right, because it means so many things. What's urban cleansing? That's an interesting term.
That's a nice way of saying that our neighborhoods are in the middle of getting gentrified. So developers are coming in and buying up, neighborhoods. And, right now, in my personal opinion, Los Angeles is looking like, Tokyo and Hong Kong. It's worse to me than New York, and nobody can afford housing. And it leads to poverty, and people being on the street.
They can't afford to stay in their own communities.
Homes. That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
Got it. So then help me understand. So if homelessness is a multiple gray, all intertwisted, what's the best, and I'm asking you because you actually are working now, which is another reason I wanted to have her on the show. Not only were you homeless and not homeless now, you are taking your experiences and helping the people who are homeless or the people in the mental health camp. So you sit on a couple of different boards.
Yeah, I sit on a board for SPA 6 for LA County Department of Mental Health, and it's really helped me connect with the community in order to be able to relate as a consumer. They call me a consumer because I was once a client of theirs. Be able to relate to what the needs in the community are and really feel the pulse of the community in terms of some of the problems that we're having, especially in South Central Los Angeles.
If you've just tuned in and you're wondering who my guests are today, I have Ramona Bridges and
Tashia Asanti,
with me on Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And the topics for today are homelessness and mental health. And Mental Health Awareness Week, I think, is coming up. And so I wanted to bring the two of them on and also to talk about your book, Forgive Me My Trespasses. Yes. Now, you sit on these boards as a former consumer,
right?
And what would you say the biggest misconceptions are about homelessness and mental health?
Well, a lot of people think that because you're homeless or you have mental health issues, that you're automatically going to be violent. And that is, not so. A lot of times what happens is situations get escalated unnecessarily when sometimes law enforcement has to respond.
And we've seen that on TV. And so you went through this yourself.
Right.
Can you tell me what happened?
Well, some of the time when the officers would come out, and, I'm not trying to put any police or law enforcement agency on blast.
Right.
It's just, we need some training. And I found that a lot of times It was more of a very aggressive approach as to a very, how can I help you from a community advocate kind of approach. Okay, and a lot of times it's, you cuff people first, and then you ask questions later. Which is, completely contradicting, why you're out there, what you're out there to do, which is, to protect and to serve
the community.
Right.
And so if I put the moose on the table and from some people's perspective, well, I'm just doing my job. I'm supposed to protect the people who are calling me, who are telling me that there are people trespassing on my property. So why should I be kinder or gentler or say, excuse me, would you, what are you doing here?
Right.
So where's the middle ground?
I've been working with I have a mental health mentor, Florence Brown. I've been working with my mental health mentor to see if we can come up with some solutions for law enforcement so far as training is concerned. And she has been unavailable to me lately because she's been so busy trying to get that off the ground. And she's been working with Landmark to try to do that. And some of the other things that she's doing, because she was a nurse for LA County Department of Mental Health for over 30 years, so she understands the process.
May I add something
Absolutely,
to that, to what
please.
Ramona's saying, and just say that one thing that our law enforcement, as well as our community, can do is just to think of our homeless citizens, or a citizen that's dealing with a mental illness. If that was your mother, or your grandmother, or your daughter, or your son, or child, how would you want them treated?
Right. And the compassion, I think that if we could move away from that belief system, the BS that says, the only solution to homelessness is for everybody to get a job. And if they get a job, they'll be able to afford housing and we wouldn't have this problem. That's the simplistic, ignorant, broad brush solution. And if you have that mindset, you are going to say, handcuff, out, go, I don't care where you go, just leave here. But if we could see it as a systemic issue, that there are people who don't, because of the closings of the mental health hospital, they have no place to go. They end up on the street. They don't belong in jail. They go into jail. Jails don't have room for them. So the solution is in the middle somewhere.
Yes.
Right.
Well, the solution isn't to dehumanize people.
It's never the solution to dehumanize people.
Right.
So how do we find a way, even it is, so if I take your situation, you can't just turn around and go from homelessness to get a job and have a house.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. Right. So what are some positive, realistic solution steps for someone? Let's say someone right now is, I'm going to come from, if you're homeless, and you're listening, so what can you do?
I think, the system itself, Dr. Marissa, is very difficult to navigate.
Yes.
Okay, and I found that I didn't learn a lot about navigating the system until I was no longer homeless.
In the system.
Right. So, which is kind of a dichotomy, but I mean, it is what it is. But I think it helps me help other people navigate the system for one way by sitting on the advisory board that I do, because I can learn all the ins and outs of navigating the system, so I'm able to communicate that to someone else.
Right. So what would you say 2 things that someone who is facing homelessness should know that could help them?
Well, with housing in particular, what LA County Department of Mental Health, and excuse me for using the acronym, has done is put housing navigators in their clinics, and that wasn't going on before. So they finally got the message that, it's housing, home first, which is, we talked briefly about that, which is why Utah has, even though it's a small state, has such a successful system that they use in their state. It's home first, because a lot of what happens is when you're qualifying for housing as a homeless person, or one that's mentally ill or has had substance abuse problems, you have to be in recovery for a certain amount of time or something like that. And with the home first attack, for lack of a better word, then you don't concern yourself so much with what the issues are until you get someone housed.
Get a roof over the head
Right,
first,
right.
and then deal with the
Right,
issues
right.
of why you are in the situation you're in.
Right.
Okay.
There's a bill on right now on the governor's desk, SB 1380. I think that Senator Mitchell proposed, and that's hopefully going to help put that kind of policy in place.
That which would definitely help.
California State Senator Holly Mitchell. Yes, we just had a wonderful meeting with her a few days ago. But I wanted to add to Ramona's sentiments and your question that when you're homeless, you're there because you can't help yourself. So I think for the responsibility to be on that homeless person to find a solution, if you had a solution, you probably wouldn't be in that situation. But I think that we have to also go back, because long before Ramona was ever homeless and before she had a break with her mental health, there were, series of events in her life that were taking place. And I think one of those things is we have to destigmatize issues related to mental health.
Thank you.
Because there's this, this whole shame piece, and especially in communities of color where we don't talk about issues. We all we'll say, oh, we have that special uncle, or he's special. No, we just put him in that room. But we need to have dialogues with our family and our communities about the signs of mental health, so that before the person gets to a critical breakdown, we can see it and say, hey, I'm seeing a little something. Have you talked to your clinician? Have you talked to your doctor? And they can go, I've been feeling a little funny. Let me check in and see if maybe I need to change my medication, which if she had had an intervention like that as someone who's been in her life, decades, and knowing how productive and amazing of a person and a woman that she is, had her community and family and friends had some information, she may have never had to get
go through
to that place. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think destigmatizing mental health issues, talking about them in the family, and like Ramona said, empowering our homeless citizens and giving them some resources, some basic resources that can help them when they're in that situation. So we've started, already doing education. Ramona's, going on shows like yours, Dr. Marissa, and many other places, talking about what are 3 things that homeless people could use if they're living on the street.
Yeah.
What kind of supplies, what kind of donations really help them until they can get into permanent or at least temporary housing.
Right.
So I think education is another thing that's key.
Yeah. Would you say that shelters are a good thing?
Oh yeah, she wrote a whole chapter in her book about that.
Yeah.
Shelters. And
Well,
food
what you have
banks.
to understand about shelters, sometimes a homeless person is reticent about going into a shelter because there's a lot of danger involved in terms of their possessions being taken and perhaps sometimes them being assaulted and stuff like that. That's why I resisted so much. I wasn't comfortable with that. For a long time, I wasn't even comfortable with going into transitional housing. Yeah, and I felt a lot more comfortable, like I said, being outside, sleeping on the cool concrete.
Right.
So, or bus benches or whatever, it took. But I agree with Tashia, for me, I knew it was going to be difficult, but that's part of the journey, getting out here talking about the stigma about it, because a lot of times, our families don't want to talk about they don't want us to talk about things like that, that are reflective, maybe they think of them, which is a misperception.
Right. Right. So, well, mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of.
Yes.
And
Right.
it is, I think,
It's a health issue.
It is a health issue, just like physical. It's a physical, it's an imbalance in the chemical. And I think that, one of our unfortunate, when the budget cuts, it really, really hurt, and people don't understand it's a
services.
systemic
Yes.
issue.
Yeah, it is.
So,
it is.
so the rise in
It is.
homelessness is directly proportional
Exactly.
to the cut in funding for mental health.
Yes.
And why I just don't understand why people don't see that. Like, why are there so many people on the
Yes.
streets? Oh, well, they just don't want to find work, and
Yeah.
it's easier to beg, and it's easier. It's like, no,
Yeah.
what are you talking
Yeah, we
about?
see it. Yeah, we
Yes,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Well, one of the things that's been going on is that HUD cut funding to transitional housing. Because when I get on the phone and I talk to my other compadres in other states, they bring me up to snuff on what's going on a lot of times, when I don't have time to find out, for myself. So that's what HUD has done. And when they cut the transitional housing, that put people back on the street, because the thing that we're trying to do now is put people in more permanent supportive housing, because there was, and I picked that up on my Twitter feed, there's a hotel downtown that SRO Housing is in the middle of refurbishing, and they had to displace people in order to do it. So, it's cyclical.
Yes.
So,
yeah, everything, nothing happens in isolation.
Right,
That whole butterfly in Brazil, and we feel it in the air. Any action that is going to impact mentally ill is going to impact homelessness, and probably even vice versa, or it's systemic. Yeah.
And I think that, eco solutions are also something that need to be explored very strongly. I mean, we've seen, even in this Los Angeles home community, there was a gentleman named Ted who created these dome homes that were very successful for a very long time. And I think those kind of solutions.
Right.
And I think that homeless people really have solutions that will work for them. And I think that those voices need to be heard.
Yes.
I think it's so wonderful that you took the time on this show to have Ramona tell her story and talk about this book. And we're hoping that we can draw the attention of people like Oprah, who have shown, a lot of passion and interest in supporting an end to homelessness in America, where we have so much wealth and so many ways to help people.
Absolutely. Well, Asian Oprah isn't quite Oprah, but we're just a tiny
Yes, you
little,
are. Yep.
just a tiny little in there. But it is really, it's time. And I think your point is, Ashanti, is so important to highlight that you can't stop at saying, get off my property.
Yes.
If you don't have the next, but here's what you can do, then we will continue to have the issue, right? So there's so much that is, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And there's so little, what about doing this?
Yes.
What about doing? I think if everyone could turn their focus from what's wrong with what's right, or what should we do, instead of we shouldn't do this, what should we do then? If what are things that we can do? It would be a whole
They
lot.
could start by buying
better.
Ramona's book,
Yes.
supporting her national education tour. She's going on tour to 10 U.S. cities, major cities where homelessness is the most critical we've seen statistically, and she's going to be talking in these communities at conferences with organizations like NAMI, National Association of Mental Health, and other organizations. And there are many community leaders who are getting behind her,
Fabulous.
who are supporting her, which is exciting.
Yes.
But of course, she can't get on those planes and all that without resources.
Yes.
So people can donate to support her tour. They can buy the book. The book is on Amazon.com. It's published by Noble Trinity Media and Motherland Press.
Beautiful.
It's doing wonderful. And there's a documentary, which is also coming out at the end of this month. And we hope to screen that at some independent theaters and film festivals across the nation, starting in London, England, with the International Homeless Film Festival.
Wow.
So, yes.
Wow, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good time for me to present. I was just going to present her with the Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award, but I think I'm going to present both of you, because it's obvious that the support that you're giving her and the platform that you are encouraging to do, I think both of you get the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award.
Thanks, Dr.
Yes. No, that is really, because you're right. I mean, we have to talk about it. We have to put this moose on the table. We cannot continue to say someone else is going to fix it. You know, whatever the government, legislature, whatever. And you're in a great position. So there's always a reason that things happen as they have, because that your experience is really important.
Well, I never felt like a victim, Dr. Marissa. You know, I think all the years that I sat at Agape prepared me for being outside. 18 months.
Yes.
Otherwise, I could not have survived it.
Yeah, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about that transformation when we take a break after we thank the sponsor who make this show possible. We'll be back in 2. Peace in and peace out. Homeless, mentally ill? Then you'll want to get Ramona Bridges' new book, Forgive Me My Trespasses, a true inspiring story of one woman's journey from the American dream to the American nightmare. Find out how love, courage, and self-determination paves a path to healing, peace, and victory over her past. Available on Amazon and www.ramonabuildbridges.com. That's www.ramonabuildbridges.com. And yes, you will put your money towards this book. Not only will you get an inspiring story, but you will be able to support Ramona in her work educating across the United States in helping find a solution. Now, homelessness is a little bit of a problem in LA. Sarcasm is another service that I offer. What are the stats around homelessness?
In Los Angeles County, there's approximately 47,000 homeless individuals. There's about 115,000 statewide, and then there's 600,000 nationally.
Wow.
That's what the numbers look like. We won't even talk about the worldwide numbers.
What are the worldwide numbers?
The worldwide numbers is 100 million people that are homeless.
And 40% women.
Right.
40% women. How many kids?
Lots of families.
Lots of families.
That's even more alarming. But women, very prominent.
Yes. So if you're one of the top 3% of the population who have a roof over your head, food in your stomach, and money in your wallet, you should be supporting those less fortunate. And you should stop complaining about anything in your life because you have those 3 things that you take for granted.
Right.
Yeah. So the book. What's your favorite part of the book since she told you the story?
Well, I think that definitely the story about her childhood. I think that was so important that, you know, she grew up, she had a great family, you know, great parents, that she was educated, she went to college, graduated from college, and that she had achieved the American dream. She had done all the things that, you know, quote unquote society says that you should do to be successful.
So she wasn't lazy.
No,
she
paid
wasn't.
her taxes. She did all those things.
She wasn't belligerent.
No.
She wasn't, that stereotype of where homelessness comes from. None of that is true.
No.
So here's a productive person in society, has a psychotic break.
Yeah, she hit a bump in her life. A lot of different things, you know, kind of catapulted and the domino effect, which if you start to talk to a lot of homeless people, they will tell you, you know, I was doing good, I was doing this and that, and then this happened, or, you know, I lost that, or, you know, my electricity got cut off, and it was a series of events, and they just could not catch up again, which is a lot of her story.
Yeah.
So I think that part of her story really, really touched me, and to see that there's a chapter where she has a picture of her as a little girl. And we talk about in that story, Ramona, of course, tells a story that she never dreamed that would be her future when she was a little girl. You know, but the resilience is also part of the story that I love the most, that she was able to weave this back together, that she was able to see the spiritual part of these experiences and rebuild her life. And now, you know, launch this. We had a very successful book launch a couple of weeks ago, and now getting ready to go out on tour with the book in just a few weeks, a few days almost now. Texas, her first major stop.
That's great.
Her home, her birthplace.
Is that your birthplace?
Yes.
Wow.
I was
Full
born
circle.
in Austin.
Born in Austin. Your parents still alive?
My mom is. My father died about a year ago, but my mom lives in Beaumont, Texas, which is about 80 miles south of Houston.
And
so, I'll be in Austin for the Texas Homelessness Network Conference, and then I'll go. I got to go check on Mom.
yeah, and what's Mom thinking these days?
Well, Mom says, she is pretty proud of me.
That's
I
wonderful.
kind of lost my credentials, for lack of a better word, in the process of being, homeless and all of that. But we're getting things cleared up.
Yes. And
So-
what's her name?
Geraldine.
Geraldine, your daughter's doing real good. You should be proud of her, and she definitely has that spirit of I'm going to step in. So let's talk about that. And I say this, Geraldine, and any parents or siblings or family of people who are homeless. I mean, there's really no roadmap for families as well. I know I have some friends who even tried to help their sister who was homeless, and there's almost, it's like it's so difficult, the overwhelm in trying to help. Is it true that the person has to really want to help themselves? That sometimes, so I'll put a moose on the table, like, I don't want to try to help you because I'm enabling you. If I keep giving you the money or the handout or a place to crash, that you're never going to stand on your feet. Is that true?
Well, I think to some extent it may be, but let me see if I can put it in perspective in terms of my familial background.
Okay.
I got a lot of my work ethic from my mom. So we call it the Patillo work ethic. And I'm a workaholic and all of that. So, and my spiritual background, I was raised Catholic, even though, I attend Agape now.
Yep.
But she, has inspired me, this whole time, because she was an English teacher, way back when, and then she taught here in LA Unified for almost 40 years. So that's where I get all that's from.
Great. Now, so let's talk about your emotional path. Right. So you mentioned in the pre-interview that you were sitting on a pity pot for a little while.
I was. And it's amazing to me, Dr. Marissa. I have cassette tapes of Reverend Michael going back to when he didn't have dreads and stuff like that. I have a whole collection that I used to sit with in the car on a regular basis. And it wasn't until Reverend Arlene gave a sermon on normality or normalcy that I finally got off my spiritual duff and I thought I needed to start figuring out how to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Now that was before, mind you, I became homeless, and Reverend Michael also gave a sermon on, feeling like you were behind enemy lines. So it got to the point where I felt like, I had grown so much spiritually. Where I was working wasn't the place for me to be. I needed to be elsewhere, and out of fear, I kept myself there for longer than I should have been. Okay. So even though there's no should have.
Right. I was going to say no shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right.
But let's go back to normalcy. That's a great, interesting concept. So what did Reverend Arlene, my friend, peace in, peace out, we just talked yesterday, but what did she say about normalcy?
Well, what sparked me to finally get out of my seat, and I was in there boo-hooing the whole time. That's what she does to me normally when she gives a sermon, is I related it to my own situation with my mental illness, and I had to keep telling myself, just because I have mental health challenges doesn't mean I'm not a normal person. And I have to think about all the people, just here in our own country that are probably on meds and don't even want to, talk about it or acknowledge it or anything like that. So my hope is, by me talking about the fact that I'm on meds, even down to the point of what they are, that I can, spark some hope in another person that's having those kinds of issues.
I call it normal is overrated.
Yeah, she talks about her own brand of normalcy in the book, too, when she quotes Reverend Arlene, who's also featured in the documentary she's just a wonderful, wonderful, bright light. But
Yes.
but definitely, you know, Ramona, you remember you talked about that, your own brand of normalcy, and that helped her so much to like not be so hard on herself. Like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm mellow now, and
Yeah.
and she found that place, that equilibrium. I think that balance.
Yeah,
in herself.
it seems to be just this widespread disease for everyone. I don't know where we get it. I think it's like around 10 because I do career days. Somewhere around 10, no matter if you do have chemical imbalances or not, if you have an abusive family or not, somehow we buy into this lie that there's something wrong enough with us. We're not good enough when we're not worthy. And that just keeps infecting, infesting, and it's wrong. It's BS. It's a belief system that keeps all of us out of the light.
We're so much better than we ever give ourselves credit
Absolutely.
for being, right? Yes.
We are precious, loving, lovable, and loved children of the universe. So get off the pot.
Right. Well, that's what I have to tell
act
myself.
like it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I have to tell myself.
Yeah, that's great. So, any shout outs and
I have a shout out for Reverend Greta, definitely, who sat with me for so long, and helped me through my healing process. Definitely Reverend Joanne, she and I, she speaks a different language. That's all I can say. So, and I always enjoy hearing her. I was at evening service actually on Sunday, so she was talking about the pigments of imagination. So I sent her a shout out on Twitter and on Facebook just for that sermon.
Beautiful.
And definitely Reverend Michael, because
my big brother.
Yeah, he taught me the art of sitting still, even though I'm still perfecting that process.
He's amazing. Yes.
That's funny. We'll have to talk about that one. I've not heard him talk about the art of sitting still. He's told me about the art of shutting up, which I also don't practice very well. But all right, it's progress, not perfection.
Yes,
so where do we find your book?
We on Amazon.com or on my website, www.ramonabillsbridges.com.
Great.
Build with an S too, right?
Yeah.
Ramona Builds Bridges.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
.com. Yes.
So you told me build.
She left that S out. That's all right.
They'll
That's
find
all right.
it.
Yes.
It's close enough. I'm sure
if you
they'll do that.
Google it,
Autocorrect.
Yes,
They'll be
there
in
we
there.
go.
Absolutely. So, any final words? Let's first. What would you say that is encouraging for anyone who has a loved one who's homeless? What would you say to them?
Well, I keep hope alive. Keep hope alive, because I made it out. I didn't think that I was ever going to get myself to the point where I was even not going to be arrested so much, and that was obstacle that I had to overcome.
So you mentioned Reverend Greta. What were some things that she said that kept you?
Oh, she wrote this beautiful piece. I still have it on my phone about the color blue, and in relation to the fingers on my hand and what the number 5 means. So that was very special.
Okay.
And there's a song that one of my friends composed after we sat and talked about it. He composed, so it'll be part of the documentary.
That's fabulous. What do people say to you that is not helpful?
Well, come up to me and say, I hear you're bipolar. When they greet me, stuff like that. Or I hear you have mental health issues, or I hear you had a psychotic break. Things like that.
Okay.
So I just try to, take it in stride.
Yeah, you're more than that.
Right.
Right? You're more than that.
Definitely.
It is just, something that is like, like something you have on.
Right.
Right? It doesn't define all of who you are.
Right. And
It's
I would
just a part.
I would be remiss in saying or not giving a shout out to Tashia and Pepper Massey and Jacqueline Kennedy, who've been kind of the dream team so far, because I can be, kind of a taskmaster when it comes to getting certain things
She's
done.
very determined.
Yes, I
which is
got
great.
that.
Yes.
I got that. She told me she was coming on the show a little while ago.
She did.
But she did make it happen.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on the show. It has been a blessing to have you. Peace and blessings to both of you in your work.
you,
Good
Dr.
luck
Marissa.
on your tour and your travel. And one more thank you. And it's that time at the end of the show where I have my last but not least balance bar. I invite you up to the bar to participate in those things that keep you balanced. And the first one would be, it is round 64 on the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. And today's balance tip for the day is, day 6 is when I'm feeling irritable, sometimes with a reason, sometimes without, especially during menopause. Get it? Menopause. I look for the good in the situation, the person, and the location. It's very difficult to complain when you're smiling, complimenting, or giggling. I choose to put my life jacket on with a silver lining. It's warmer and more fashionable than a straitjacket. Oh, and by the way, the men's counterpart to menopause is IMS, irritable man syndrome. So you're not excused from that. And it's not too late to join the fast. Just go to drmarissa.online, and the companion app is now available. That came out last year. So on your phone, you can actually get a daily tip on how not to complain. There's a way to hit a button that encourages you not to complain, because a baby will start crying if you do complain, and you'll get cheers just like the one that Ramona and Tashia
yes.
just got. So please do get the app. It's only 99 cents. Who says you can't get anything for $1 these days? And I'll be teaching balanced Tai Chi Gong, also known as the Chinese yoga, again for the Movement of Agape International Day of Peace celebration. Make sure you join me September 17th at the Agape International Spiritual Center, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 for a day of heart opening with a myriad of yoga practices, including balanced Tai Chi Gong. And next week, it is that time of the month, call-ins, where I get to be Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura, and answer your questions about your health and well-being, your relationships, and your job and career. So if you'd like to not wait in line for me, then please do contact my call-in producer, Jarvis Essex, who's also my fabulous sound engineer. And you can contact him either messaging on Facebook, Jarvis Essex, or by email, jassex13@aol.com. And that's it for another fabulous episode of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Don't turn a page. I couldn't see past my rage. I wanted to dance, but I pushed you away. Now I'm on my knees. I'll listen to what you say. And you said, be my partner, dance.